Mm-hmm.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end. Call it a night, the party's over. And tomorrow and next year starts the same old thing again.
We got it.
Don Meredith used to say the party's over, and it was over way early, than anybody expected last night in L.A. The Georgia Bulldogs just steamrolled TCU, just completely steamrolled them, beat them by a score of 65-7. Folks, welcome to the Sports Talk with Chris Heidel. I'm Chris Heidel in the left-hand corner. Adam is down over in the right-hand upper corner. This is like hot squares. There's George. He's part of this. Takedown Thunder. You can watch that every day on Classic TV. it's like, and there's Matt checking out. He's going to join us for the first part of the show before we get to the our meat of the program. So, speaking of last night, 65-7. So, Adam, let's start off with you. What do you think about that score?
All I gotta say is, it could have been. If Justin Bennett would have said in the game, I think Georgia could have scored at least 80 points. It's like, I mean, what can you say? Georgia outplayed TCU through and through. TCU, congratulations on making it to the national championship. Right now, I think we all can agree. The SEC overall is the best college football conference around.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you and I and George doing the hand gesture, they got a lot more money that, they have a better network. ESPN puts more money towards the SEC network than they do for the ACC and the Big 12 and everybody else. And you see it, and I feel like, if you're not in the SEC, like you got the two new teams coming in next year, Texas and Oklahoma, it's going to make it even worse. It's going to be, this should have just called the college football the SEC football league. That's what they should call them. What do you think about that, George?
I don't disagree. I will say there was a couple of interesting things that did come out of last night. One, that Nick Saban was left speechless when the comment was made about the Georgia Bulldogs taking over the SEC. That the look on his face is priceless. And then two, was there an NCAA violation when the Georgia Bulldog players went over to some fans and were given buffalo wings?
I saw that. I was like, what? I'm like,
So, so you have a situation where was there a violation of NCAA rules by someone giving food to Georgia Bulldog players and openly bringing it back to the bench, by the way.
right. Yeah, they should have brought some blue cheese out. That's what I look at it.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. I mean, the closest that game was 0-0. Well, yeah, 0-0 was the closest that game ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in the first quarter, it got 10-7, but it was good night, Irene, after that.
Yeah, exactly. Did you know that that score at halftime, the Georgia Bulldogs halftime score was the second highest total for halftime? And you know what the previous record was, George?
I'm going to say 31-7.
No, 34-0.
Okay.
And you have to go out to Pasadena and watch the Hurricanes do it to Nebraska in 2001.
And the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah, and that was an NFL team back then. Miami. That was like complete. They had like an NFL roster. So 34-0 was the all-time score at halftime. The BCS / national, whatever they call it now.
Yeah, and actually, Chris, before we bring on Chris Blank, I have a trivia question for all of you. What was on the grounds of SoFi Stadium before SoFi Stadium was built?
It was actually it was a horse racing place, right?
Yes, it was. It was called Hollywood Park. It was one of the premier horse racing tracks in the country. And when it got destroyed, a lot of people in the horse racing industry were really sad, So it's called. So a lot of people may not remember that at the grounds of SoFi Stadium was one of the premier horse racing tracks in the country, Hollywood Park.
Exactly, I agree with you. So let's bring in Chris Plank, who he covers. He does a lot of the Big 12 stuff. He covers Oklahoma. So we'll see how a Big 12 guy is dealing with this morning, watching an SEC team completely annihilate the Big 12 team. So hey Chris, how you doing?
Hey, Chris. Adam, I remember Hollywood Park, baby. Made a lot of money in Hollywood Park.
All right. Nice, Chris. Cool.
Right there. When they built SoFi Stadium, you guys remember they fought with the airport because it's right there by LAX because you're coming right in. So, yeah. Chris, I'll make this very simple. I do a show called Big 12 today. It was not fun today. It was a challenging day on Sirius XM channel 375. So, not necessarily a banner night for the Big 12, and obviously a very frustrating one for TCU.
Yeah, I just feel like Chris. I feel like Kirby Smart was doing something because that score was. My mom was even. She's not a big football fan, but when I told her it's 65-7 at the game was over, and she's like, "The heck happened here?" and I like, Mom, they just came. Georgia just came out of the gates. 2 turnovers right away by TCU, and then the floodgates open. And I felt like, to me, just my personal opinion, I feel like Kirby was sending a message to Nick Saban and saying, "You want some of this? Come get it. We'll show you."
Saban was there; he saw it firsthand. So it's this. I think you guys said it best earlier. Kirby Smart, Stetson Bennett could have named their score last night, and you felt like it was really a bad spot for TCU as soon as they kicked that thing off. Whenever Kirby Smart was being interviewed, and he's like, "Aggression. I want aggression. We're going to be like, oh my gosh, we're in big trouble tonight." Now, I will say this. I think you're right. Kirby Smart has something going on. He has followed that Georgia Bull print that Alabama blueprint, and he's amped it up another level, right? They've
Mhm.
recruited the best players. They've got, Shane Beamer, who's the head coach of South Carolina now, has said many times that, basically what happened is whenever he was at Georgia, they took everything that they had from Alabama, and you basically changed that A logo to the G logo. So, he sent a message last night, but we've seen it for 2 years. Stetson Bennett is a walk-on quarterback, and he's lost 3 games in his entire career that he started, and 2 of those were to Alabama. The other one was in 2020. Well, one of them was in 2020 to Bama. The other 2020 loss was to Florida. And, that's a year in college football that you kind of look back on, and it's what really carried over from 2020. So it's an amazing run right now that Georgia's on. And I don't know about you guys, but I think they sent the message. They're the standard bearer right now. They're the flag bearer in college football. They're where everyone needs to be.
Yeah. Before I send it over to Adam, it was funny, Chris, watching Kirby Smart using those one words. And you reminded me of Saturday Night Live with Bush and Gore doing the what does it sum up your one word of your campaign? I have a little clip real quick because I thought it was funny as anything. So here it is.
Strategery. Vice President Gore. Lockbox. This concludes the first debate. Thank
I like strategery, though. I think it worked. I use it a lot. That's one of my favorite Saturday Night Live bits, and unfortunately, kind of based on reality with the way that played out for both those dudes. But listen, what happened last night, I come to you, gentlemen, today as somebody that is not sitting here trying to say the Big 12 was hosed or that TCU deserved better. I'm just here humbly saying that Georgia's who we're all chasing. Alabama's a close second. Ohio State's in that mix, and we're not even close right now with everyone else.
Yeah. Well, Adam and I know about how we dealt with bad defeats as Florida State fans. So we know we feel the pain when
bad defeats.
Yeah.
You guys brought the entire country to that Cheez-It Bowl a couple of weeks ago. Holy smokes!
I'm talking about years ago when we got there at when we got trampled. Miami took us behind the woodshed one year and beat the crap out of us.
Hey, I've been there. So again,
and even Notre Dame. I went to South Bend and I saw that firsthand. I'm watching that melee. I'm like, and my brother Chris, my brother called me. He goes, "You enjoying the melee?" I'm like, "Not really. I can't leave."
No, but been there. So I do sideline reporting for the Sooner Radio Network, and I've been a part of 3 of those. Oklahoma got boat raced by Clemson. They got beat by Alabama, and LSU in 2019 was very forgettable. Those aren't situations where, as a fan or as a player or as a coach, you want to be a part of. I saw a pretty funny tweet last night from a diehard Sooner fan that said, you're at that point now when you're a TCU fan where you're realizing how much you spent in order to get here to this moment. So it was a very, very frustrating, backbreaking night for not just TCU, but the entire Big 12.
Yeah. Well, let's go with George because I've made fun of his Irish. Go ahead, George.
No, my Irish beat you guys.
It's true.
So Plank, I made the comment as we came on the show that Nick Saban had the eye roll when he was questioned about Georgia, being the new standard, and then we had scenes of Georgia Bulldogs eating wings coming from the fans in the stands. What's going on with that?
They're up 100-0, so they can do whatever they want.
Right?
I think it's part of it. But you know what? I don't know what, and I heard what you were talking about. I don't know what's against the rules and what isn't anymore in this NIL
What
era.
are the rules?
What are the rules? There are no rules. What's Al Davis's great line?
Yep.
And I'm a Raiders fan, so I live the absolute misery that is rooting for that team. But it's if you're not cheating, you're not trying, and it's only cheating if you get caught. So I got the biggest kick out of it. I'll say this though, I don't know how you guys felt, but I thought Nick Saban was really good on TV, and I do a local radio show from 9 to noon here in Norman, Oklahoma, and when they talked about when you go back to David Pollock and the comments he made last night about, listen, Georgia's the standard in college football, and he's sitting right next to Nick Saban. Our audience seemed to joke about, oh, great, we have an origin story for the great comeback for Nick Saban. And I thought that was hilarious. But, I mean, listen, what else can you say, man? They've won back-to-back national championships. It's only been done four times in the modern era.
And first time in CFP.
That's right. No one's done this in the playoffs. No
First
one.
time.
And, I mean, in Kirby Smart's second year, it took a miraculous play from Tua Tagovailoa and Devontae Smith in order to win the game and give Alabama a championship in 17. 16, all my years run together. But you all know the walk-off home run, the Hail Mary. So, I mean, technically, Georgia should have a third. So it's amazing, man, what they've been able to do. And I'm in awe because they not only do it, but they keep getting better, and they do it in dominant fashion.
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to shift, Chris, from the national championship game because you are the voice of Oklahoma softball.
Yes, sir.
And last year you saw the home run queen, Jocelyn Allo, hitting all those Sooner slams out of Heinz Field. So I got to ask you, Chris, can Oklahoma win another national title this year under head coach Patty Gasso? I mean, their schedule looks really good. I mean, Florida State comes to Norman. You guys play LSU, UCLA to start the year. But to me, Oklahoma's number one, and you got to knock off those Sooners. And I think at the end of the season, Coach Gasso hoists another national title at ASA Hall of Fame Stadium in OKC.
Listen, guys, embrace college softball. It's one of the fastest growing sports. It's fun to watch. It's a blast. And you're right, man. One of the great blessings in my life has been backing into doing OU Sooner softball. In 2016, I didn't know anything about softball. I got hired to come down here to Norman. I was already the sideline football guy. They said, move down here. You can do some softball and some basketball. And I've fallen in love with this program. How many programs can lose the greatest player in college softball history like Jocelyn Allo was and say, we might be better? That's Oklahoma. They've added 4 transfers out of the portal, and it's just they've got players galore. So I'm so excited for the future of Oklahoma softball, especially this year. And you mentioned the challenging schedule. Funny thing, they open up against Duke. All right, Duke is a funny story. Not to get too carried away here, because Duke's hitting coach is Cindy Romero, who was an all-around amazing player for OU. So she was with us last year. So really cool storylines. I'm so excited for the season going forward. It helps to bridge my gap to college football, right? I've got the Raiders sucking. I've got my Sooners trying to bounce back, and I got OU softball that'll go win another national championship for me.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's called. All I'll say is I always like watching Oklahoma Sooners softball here in North Carolina, especially a home game. You know, especially when it's the Bedlam series, Oklahoma State. It's like
so good.
You've been a part of it, Chris, for a while, so it's like that rivalry is just nuts.
It is. And you know what? It's funny because it's going to end, right? It's coming to an end, and that's sad. With Oklahoma going to the SEC, and I'm fine. I think Oklahoma needs to do that from a football perspective.
Yes.
From a softball perspective and from a baseball perspective and from a basketball perspective, that it's disappointing. But I'll tell you what, I would encourage all your listeners to give it a try. You're going to love it. College softball is well worth the price of admission.
I love watching softball on ESPN. I have ESPN Plus, so I'll watch all the Oklahoma softball games through Sooner Vision this year. So tell Coach Gasso she has a fan in North Carolina.
Oh, she'll love it. You know, that's the one thing, too, in what Coach Gasso has done. She's created not just a championship program, but a culture. So they're more than just a softball team. They're a brand, and I think they're pretty special, man. They're fun to watch.
Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Chris, it's Matt.
What's up, Matt?
So yeah, that was a dominating performance by Georgia, and let me tell you, when I heard Kirby Smart, okay, the field reporter asked him, so what is it that what's going to be your game and everything? He just uses one word, aggression. That right there, just like what you said, I'm like, wow, Georgia is focused on all sides. Hats off to TCU because they had a tremendous season. Getting into the playoffs, pulling off that tremendous win against Michigan, and then getting into the national championship game. So they had a great season with first-year head coach at TCU, Sonny Dykes. So they're definitely representing the Big 12 with style and with class. But just like can you just talk about what what this means for TCU getting into a national championship? I know they didn't win and stuff, but what it means for them and the Big 12, and also what it meant for Georgia to be repeats, first time since Alabama did it since 2011 and 2012.
Yeah, and it's only happened 4 times. So, first part for TCU, they know what it takes to get to that next level now, right? They did something that hasn't been done before in Big 12 history. They made the championship game. So, you get here, and now you see, holy smokes, we got to get better. So, I think you're going to see they're going to work hard in the portal. They're going to continue to recruit great players, and they got to keep their staff together. Secondly, what does it mean for Georgia going forward? They're the standard bearer, man. And I haven't spent a lot of time around Kirby Smart, but I know that he's the kind of guy that never leaves the office, right? He's either recruiting or he's game planning. So I got to tell you something. I think for Georgia, they're just going to get better, and their schedule next year sets up to where they're not challenged. They don't play Alabama. They have no challenge in the off. They don't have an Oregon on their schedule again, and we saw what they did to Oregon regardless. So I think it's big for them. Hey, by the way, looking ahead to next year, I know that's what we do on shows like this, but TCU opens the season with Colorado and Deion Sanders. So
Oh,
an opportunity for both sides to make a statement. TCU to say, we're not a one-year wonder. We're here to stick around. And for Colorado to say, hey, we just, beat the team that played for the national championship. So I hate to get too carried away looking at it next year, but it's going to be really fun to kind of see how things pan out for TCU going forward because Max Duggan gone, Heisman runner-up, that hurts. And now they got a boatload of talent that's moving on to the NFL. Let's see how they respond.
Exactly. Well, Chris, thanks so much for coming on tonight, and enjoy the off season. We don't really have an off season, but enjoy the
no such thing.
No such thing. We'll get you on before in the summertime, and so we'll talk more Big 12.
Call anytime, guys. Chris, Adam, George, Matt, thank you guys so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, man.
thanks a lot.
Good call. Thanks, Chris.
All right, that's Chris Plank, who does a lot of stuff with the Oklahoma Sooners and also with the softball, on XM Radio. He's also on the Mad Dog Radio and Fox Sports Radio. So let's bring in this gentleman. Tomorrow night, the Wizards are back home down in D.C. taking on the Chicago Bulls, and we'll bring in Dave Johnson, who is the voice of the Wizards, who we had him on earlier this year or last year before Christmas because he was working with DC and I. So, Dave, thanks so much for joining us, and Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Appreciate the time.
Talk about last night. Tough loss for the Wizards against the Pelicans. Everybody's injured pretty much. So what did you see last night with that game against the Pelicans?
Well, just an inexcusable loss. I mean, they've got to get it right. It was a kind of a one-off thing we thought maybe in Oklahoma City where they had too many turnovers, led to too many Thunder points after, a stretch of games where they played very well. But last night, 20 turnovers led to 39 points by the Pelicans. So, it's a case where, no excuses. It just, you're going to have off nights, you're going to have bad nights. The problem is the Wizards, they need to show they're better than the record of 17-24. And it's been kind of a crazy season in that at times, statistically, they and there are stretches of games where they statistically, both in offensive and defensive ratings, play like one of the best teams in the league. But then there's games where they play like one of the worst teams in the league in that category. So, it'd be nice to get some consistency in middle ground, and that's why they're 17-24 now. Yeah, it is the second half of the season. Starts tomorrow against Chicago, and the pressure's on.
Yeah. Bradley Beal's out. He had a low hamstring, left hamstring. What's the diagnosis on him? Is he coming back anytime soon, or is he going to? Was his hammies not good?
Tomorrow night. That's the initial was he was going to have to miss at least 3 games. So then he'll be reevaluated after that, and so that's where we are in terms of that. He'll be reevaluated after tomorrow night's game. So. Again, that as the Wizards won, as part of their 5-game winning streak, actually, the start of their 5-game winning streak, the game in Sacramento against the Kings, a quality team. The mantra was, "I get home and get healthy," because this team was getting Rui Hachimura and DeLon Wright back. So that was positive. And also, the belief was Bradley Beal was coming back soon. Now, he's out, and we don't know the next step. So, it's a big blow. I mean, the team playing with last night, the Pelicans suddenly are without both Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. So, but they're in a better position. They're 24 or 25 and 16. Whereas the Wizards are in a position now that no matter who's in or who's out, they really have to make up some games. And unfortunately for them, it's not a favorable schedule in terms of they still have a road-heavy schedule, and no matter how well you're playing, it's tougher to win on the road.
Hey, Adam, you had a question for Dave?
Yeah. Talk to us about Porzingis, averaging 22 points a game, 9 rebounds a game, almost a double-double. You have Rui Hachimura, who came in from Gonzaga. You have Kyle Kuzma, and also Bradley Beal. Talk to us about the leadership of Porzingis.
Well, I mean, he's just a classy guy on so many levels, but certainly, he's a veteran that has brought a lot off the court to this team. But, since they acquired him in last year at the trade deadline, almost a year ago, he has put up all-star numbers. He's a special problem for opponents to deal with. He's 7'3" with guard skills. He's been is advertised and more. And, as Taj Gibson, one of his teammates, says, he's also, very tough. He's a guy that plays through a lot of physical pain because the scouting reporters, everybody tries to beat him up. He's not. Unfortunately, the thing that has been hanging around his neck throughout his career has been, injuries and never playing more than 57 games. But, touch wood, he's been very healthy with the Wizards. And he's showing when healthy, he can be one of the elite players in this league because it's a special skill set when you're 7'3", and it's not only on the offensive end. I mean, he can get out and, guard on the perimeter and still get back in the post and defend. So, he's just a special, special player.
That's true, Dave. Well, Dave, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you so much for taking some time tonight on the phone, and I hope to see you maybe tomorrow or Friday when the Knicks are in town.
Appreciate it as always. Appreciate it. Thanks,
all right,
guys.
Dave. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Dave. Mm-hmm.
All right, that's Dave Johnson, the voice of the Wizards on radio here in Washington, D.C., and the Bulls will be in D.C. tomorrow at 7:00 against the Wizards. So
it was literally a voice.
Yeah.
No video, literally a voice.
The only voice of Wizards basketball. I guess he has somebody with him. I don't know. I don't really get into NBA basketball on the radio. I don't know. To me, it's like, I think college basketball more exciting.
Yeah.
With Johnny Holiday and all those cool guys who do games. So coming up, folks, we're going to wait in a few minutes here. I gave some time for Jerome Queen is a band director at Poly Institute here in Baltimore. And last week we were trying to get him on, but we had that situation with we're still praying for DeMar up there in Buffalo, up there in the right-hand corner there. hopefully he's out of the hospital and he's back in Buffalo, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have him on because his band of young men and women went down to the Peach Bowl and played at halftime for that Peach Bowl game between Ohio State and Georgia. So and it'll be he's going to bring some of his people on. A couple of his band members will be on. So we could talk to. And George, your daughter does a lot in bands, so you're known. Yep, we're in the band shirt there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who I work with. She was in my high school band that I went to, and now she's in the band at Western Carolina University. And they went up to a event in Indianapolis, Indiana, the Battle of the Bands, and they were a exhibition for all the greatest high school bands in the country. So she got to tour Indianapolis a little bit, and they actually had the competition at Lucas Oil Stadium.
That's cool.
Was that this past year, Adam?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, I may have seen her because I was at the Bands of America, which
That's what it was. My friend's name is Sam. I forget what instrument she plays, but she was up there with the Western Carolina University band.
That's cool.
That's awesome. Good stuff. So speaking of the band, let's bring in the director of the band director. He also spent some time with the Baltimore Ravens as a band director. So let's bring Jerome Queen, the band director of Poly Institute in Baltimore, joining us here this evening. Well, my thing is being slow. There you go. Hey, Jerome, how you doing?
Good evening.
Thank you so much for coming on. I saw this a couple of weeks ago. You were on Channel 11 here in Baltimore. Yes. And I was like, a band going down to the Peach Bowl? I was like, this is pretty cool. So how did that all come about?
It came about, we kind of got like a letter in the mail that said, hey, you were invited to the Peach Bowl. Go to this website, fill out this information, and see what you can do. And it started with my co-director. She's not in here right now, but I'm pretty sure I just forwarded her the new link because I had the previous one. But she had the letter and she gave it to us, and we were like, this is an opportunity we can't afford to pass up, at all. Oh, there she goes.
There she is. Can you hear us? I don't know. I hope that she hear us, Jerome. Anyway, she continue, and we'll chime in. Go ahead.
So she received the letter, and we kind of were like, okay, how can we she disappeared. We were like, how can we make this happen? So we got the invitation in March, and we started there with the application process and putting in the information with the event company, which was called Box 5 Events. And then it kind of was a lull for a little bit because we were trying to figure out, like, okay, this is going to be a lot of money. How do we get the kids down to Atlanta? What do we do once we're there? But then we kind of just got the ball rolling, and we were kind of off to the races at that point.
That's cool. Awesome. George, go ahead. You are a father of a daughter who's in band, and you probably have the same things that you guys been doing.
Yeah, I see the Penn. Is that Penn State?
That's a Penn Marching Band, Penn Marching Kingsmen, out of Mishawaka, Indiana.
Oh, okay. Way west.
And I know when you talk about fundraising and how to get from point A to point B, last year, I'll say actually 2021, our band performed in the Hollywood Christmas Parade.
Ooh.
So, I know what it takes to put the events together. How do you do all the fundraising? How do you get, the least amount of financial impact on the kids? Mm-hmm. So I definitely understand that. So what did you do to prepare for the event? How did you go about choosing your performance?
So our performance, we kind of set our show in the summer. So in the summer we go about and we think about themes, and my cat might jump on my lap at any point. So I'm sorry if he does. we go and we set about themes. And we thought about going to Atlanta. We were like, well, how about we bring a little bit of Baltimore and what we know of Baltimore to Atlanta, because Atlanta is considered the mecca of bands. And so we thought about, well, we wanted the theme, and our theme was, we called it the Be More Show. And our theme was kind of loosely held together by songs that had, honestly, the title B in the name or in the artist. And then we implemented some Baltimore like club classic or club mix music into it as well, into our performance, that kind of gave it its own unique thing. Like, this is what we do, where we're from, and we're showing you what Baltimore looks like, down in Atlanta.
Cool. I can tell you, I understand the stress of what it goes behind to, and you guys probably have a 6 to 8 week marching band season, right? You go and compete against other bands.
Our season is more like, I want to say really 10 weeks.
Nice.
We start, and honestly, if we're thinking about band camp, it's more like 12.
We'll count band camp, yes.
We start in August with band camp, which is almost like a work shift. You come in at 8, you leave at 5.
Yep.
You have a lunch break, but we work on marching maneuvers, music, team building activities to get the students, used to each other, building that camaraderie within the students. In the fall, we start in September, and our season ends, quote unquote, in December with the mayor's Christmas parade. So we perform at all of our home football games, and then we perform at various competitions. We performed at the Morgan State University homecoming parade, which was my alma mater. We performed in the Veterans Day parade in Baltimore. We also did school events as well, and we also do events for other groups. So we opened up an area in Baltimore that was Port Covington was being rebranded as the Baltimore Peninsula, and the company in charge of that, they contacted us and said, hey, we would like a band to come perform. So we do various performances throughout the year, and so this marching band season was no doubt longer than usual, but we usually start in September. We go until December, and we do. We're transitioning to be a competitive group.
That's awesome.
Cool. Hey, Jerome, introduce your 2 band directors. I got them here online here, so go ahead. What's the first one?
Okay, so the first one is India Hairston. She's the band director at Western High School, and we work closely together as co-band directors. Me at Poly, her being at Western, and then Kevin Dixon, who is the assistant band director.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the show.
Cool.
Good stuff, folks.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So talk first of all, with India, talk about your your experience down there in Atlanta. Well, how cool was it to be in the Peach Bowl?
It was probably the coolest thing to be at the Peach Bowl, because it has been, and I was with Hampton and so it was fun for that to actually be my first experience in an away trip to Atlanta, which is where I finished my marching band.
Same question, Kevin. Go ahead.
It was an amazing experience to be able to see the looks on the kids' faces as they participated in the different competitions and events, especially like the awards and ceremonies where they got the opportunity to see the outside result of the work that they put in. And it was a very rewarding experience. A long experience, but very rewarding experience.
No, Adam, do you have any questions? Go ahead.
I do. I got a question for everybody. What's your favorite type of music to perform to? Is it called? Now, for me, I love country music. I love classic rock and roll music like Aerosmith, the Eagles. So, we'll start with you, Jerome. What's your favorite type of music to perform to?
For me, my favorite type of music to perform is probably R&B. R&B, nice. It has such a groove and a cadence to it. It makes you want to move. So, if it makes you want to march, it makes you want to dance, it makes you want to get up. So I always love some upbeat R&B or even some kind of mid-tempo R&B music.
Nice. All right, India, you're next. What's your favorite type of music?
I think I'm very I think it's more disco. I think I like the energy of disco, and it just, it just brings out a whole different feeling. Like disco is just like a fantasy world, in my opinion, just like with all the glitz, all the glam, all just the imagination. And then I'm a tuba player, so the bass lines in disco era is like my favorite. So my favorite is definitely disco.
Cool. All right, Kevin.
My favorite would have to be anything up tempo that can go into what we would call a dance routine. We usually use those to close out the show. It's like the signature of the group, and it's high energy, and everything has to be involved. So most definitely, we use a lot of hip hop and upbeat R&B in that. So
that's great. That's cool. That's awesome. So, George, go ahead. Back to you. You do all this stuff with your daughters, and it sounds like it's really familiar stuff that they go the same thing you do, right?
I'm loving the conversation because I'm sitting here and I can see the passion in the three of them of what they're doing, and Jerome, we are a competition high school. We have what we call Carnival of Bands. We host a day where all the bands come to our high school, and to see the bands come through and all the families participating, it's a huge, just FYI, it's a huge fundraiser. So if you're looking for ideas of how to do that, think about a Carnival of Bands where you guys compete as an exhibition, but everyone else comes in and competes against each other. My daughter, she plays the alto sax.
That's my instrument.
What's that?
Saxophonist.
And she does, and that was not even her first instrument. She played the bassoon in Symphonic Winds. So the band director's like, well, if you're going to play in Symphonic Winds, that's great, but I can use a saxophone player. So she's playing the saxophone for the marching band. But I would love to collaborate with you and maybe help you folks with some fundraising and stuff like that, give you some ideas.
That would be great. It's funny that you mentioned the Carnival of Bands and having the whole school be the exhibition. That's something we've been tossing around as an idea for the better part of this year and even going into last school year, and just trying to figure out how we can get it off the ground. Because, like you said, funding is a big part of making some things like these bowl games happen. And so we definitely would be willing to collaborate and see how we can do something like that, like that event.
Jerome, I have 12 food trucks at my event.
So no one's hungry.
So and they all pay X amount of dollars to park their truck for the day and serve food to the masses. And so we can definitely talk.
Nice. And I'll give George, I'll send you Jerome's email, and you guys can start working together. And you can probably get some help, Jerome, and get this thing out there, because you'll represent Baltimore and Baltimore City. Because Baltimore City has a lot of great music, we have great culture down here, and it's great to see it on a national stage, because it's pretty cool.
And Chris, marching band is so important for these kids. Yeah. It's absolutely important. It's music. Not only it helps them build relationships, but they get to work on their left and the right hand side of their minds. If they're using their whole mind, just not one side at a time, they're using all of it. So,
absolutely,
I'm a strong supporter.
That's true. I found a clip. I found this on YouTube yesterday. I guess somebody was filming the practice of you guys before the game down in the Peach Bowl, and this is what George. Let me play a little bit of it. It's a very long clip. It's like 8 minutes long, but we'll show you what what kind of formations and all that stuff. So here it is a little bit. We'll play a good 2 or 3 minutes of it. Here it is.
On behalf of Box 5 Invest, it's my pleasure to welcome to the field Baltimore Polytechnic Institute Western High School marching squad from Baltimore, Maryland.
We love you, Leo!
Today, their performance will be more. The selections include Cuffin from Beyonce, Bad Girl Damage by Danny Kincaid, Bust Your Windows, Jasmine Sullivan Number, Baltimore Dance Mix, featuring various artists. Drum major is the Poly Western marching flock ready.
That's good stuff.
It is. It is.
168 is a lot of members, George. Is a lot of them.
It takes 6 school buses to get us to competition to competition.
Wow.
Yeah, that was great. So it was great. So just that must have took a long time for you guys to get in formations and all that stuff. That must have took a lot of long nights, right?
Yeah. How long did it take to put that show together? India and Dixon, y'all, or the masterminds behind the drill?
That show took weeks to actually put together. We spent a lot of time just teaching them regular marching maneuvers. And then showing them how to put them together to fit the song or the routine.
That's true. Well, guys, thanks for coming on tonight. We love having you guys on, and keep us posted. And have a great great Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
All right, guys. That was.
That's a cool experience, Chris.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was very cool. Cool experience. So that was the folks from the Polytechnic High School here in Maryland who played at the Peach Bowl back in December 31st. And like you said, George, it takes a long time for things to get together, and you got to have parents that are committed, because some parents are not committed to stuff.
Yeah,
I should be committed.
Yeah, it's called. Like I said, it's called. I've got friends who at my alma mater who have played at my high school alma mater who have played in the marching band. It's called. And when I've gone to the football game and seen them perform in person, it's like I know the band director really well, and it's like I know how much time and effort it takes, to do a whole presentation. The band at my school goes to a lot of competitions here in Western North Carolina every year, and they always do really, really well. So that was a cool experience, Chris. Thank you.
Our band competition, our band season starts the first week in June.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I found out last night. I'm going to try to get in. There's a guy who was out there in Los Angeles. I guess he's from here. He was part of the band out there for the national championship game or something like that. And I saw it on Facebook, so I'm going to try to track him down and see if we can get him on and talk about it. I think it's good to talk about different things besides sports. And like George, the guy, the organist from Yankee Stadium. Like, come on, let's get that
and the
guy
Islanders.
On. Yeah, come on, let's get him on. That'd be cool to have him on.
Sure, I could do that.
Yeah, we'll do it when you get back from because next week you're on the road next week, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so we'll do it.
Yep, Paul Cartier plays the organ for the Yankees and for the Islanders.
Nice.
Cool.
Coming up at 8:05, before we bring Jason in, we got this gentleman coming on. We all know about Mike Aulby, who was a really good bowler back in the when we were growing up. He's coming on tonight at 8:05. Little classic Mike Aulby from 1981 there.
The year I was born.
Yeah. So he actually won a title, and he bowled against Dave Davis back in 1980 and won a title. So that's why we have him on, because Dave Davis passed away a couple weeks ago. So anyway, let me go, and I have to take care of a situation here, George. Let me let you welcome in the next guest here, Jason Patt, who covers the Bulls, and I'll be right back. Okay?
Sure. Hey, Jason, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. Thanks for coming on. Chris had to step aside, so he's asked me to take the helm for him. So a lot of crazy things going on there in the Windy City nowadays, huh? With the first half of the season with the Bulls, and it's not necessarily going in their favor.
Yeah, I mean it's been a little better lately. The first 30 or so games were kind of a disaster. They were 11-18 at one point after they lost. They gave up like 150 points to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's when there was like rumors about there being tension in the locker room, and there was like a whole blow up at halftime with Zach LaVine and some of the players calling him out. And since that game, they've actually gone 8-4. They're back to 19-22. Still not a great record, but they are back in the play-in spot. I believe they're 9th or 10th right now. I had the standings. They're currently 10th, a game and a half ahead of the Raptors, 2 games ahead of the Wizards. They lost a tough one last night to Boston. Almost had a big comeback from 15, 16 points down. Had a chance there at the end, but just fell short. But they've been a lot more competitive lately. Had some big wins. They ended the Nets winning streak of 12-game winning streak. They've beaten Milwaukee a couple times. They beat Boston 2 times earlier this year. So they've slowly but surely started to come around. Zach LaVine has played a lot better. DeMar DeRozan did get hurt last night against Boston. Does not seem like it's too bad. That would be a killer loss if he missed time. But it has definitely been a roller coaster ride. It's been kind of crazy. Just like kind of the back and forth feelings about like what this team should do, especially now that we're about a month away from the trade deadline. Should they blow it up? Should they not? And kind of keep this group together. It's certainly been very eventful. But it has been nice to see them play a little bit better in the last couple of weeks, because it was going pretty miserably there for the first 30 or so games.
So, Jason, let's be honest, right? Sometimes a team's got to get to a low point in order to get better, right? And it's a long season. I mean, it's a marathon. It's not like you're in a sprint here. You have a season that lasts until the end of June, So anything's possible, and anyone else can have a meltdown along the way as well. So you just got to be able to peak at that right time while someone else is struggling, and before you know, you're moving up in the rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. Like last year, the Bulls peaked early. They were in first place for a bunch of the season, like the All-Star break, going into 2022. They were like 39-21, and then the injuries kind of ran into them in a tough schedule at the end of the year, and they just fell apart. They still obviously made the playoffs, but they got smoked by Milwaukee in the first round. So now this year, it's kind of been the opposite so far. Like a terrible start, starting to come together. They're confident that their best basketball is still ahead of them. The Lonzo Ball situation is still hanging over the entire team because he is not back, and who knows when he's going to be back. I think most Bulls fans at this point are assuming that he's not going to be back this season. He is still not running yet after a second knee surgery. No one knows really what's going on there. It's a lot of funky stuff going on with his knee, and I don't know if he's ever going to be back to ever what he once was, because like if they actually did start playing better and like he did come back and he was able to provide even more of a boost, then maybe you'd even think maybe this team can do something in the playoffs. Because he probably won't. There's still a bit of a ceiling on this team. So that's why people are still like wondering, like, should they look at trading guys like veterans like DeMar and Nikola Vucevic and stuff like that? Because just like, how good can this team be? They have shown that they can beat a handful of good teams here. They have had problems against some of the lesser teams under 500. So it does it gives the front office just some big decisions to make. I personally don't think they're going to make any big like sell-off trades, because I just don't think the ownership wants to do that. I think they kind of want to they're in the play-in spot right now. I think they kind of they're only a couple games out of the 6th seed. They're those kind of top 5 teams in the East are really good. And then You got like the Knicks, the Pacers, the Hawks, the Bulls, the Heat, the Wizards and Raptors are down there too, like kind of battling out for those last spots. I think I would guess Bulls ownership wants to kind of just roll with that and go for one of those spots and maybe get up there, but you never know. It would be nice to see them make some type of move, just do something, but we'll see. There's a month left till the trade deadline, so a lot of time left still.
Do you want to touch on Javonte Green really quick?
Yeah, Javonte, unfortunately, it was reported today, or the Bulls announced today that he had a knee surgery. He's been out of the lineup for a while here lately. Knee surgery is probably going to, I think they said it'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Sounds like it'll probably be around a month. I think Woj followed that up, said it'll probably be a month or so. I mean, anytime you have a knee surgery, and I mean, you see knee surgery now, you think the worst with what's happened with Lonzo Ball. He had knee surgery last January in 2022, and he's still not back. So hopefully Javonte will actually be back in a week or so, or not a week, a month or so, because he is a great energy guy, great vibes guy, brings a lot of energy off the bench. He can dunk with the best of them. Important depth at power forward for the Bulls, and defensively, him and Alex Caruso off the bench are kind of like a nice tag team duo, causing or wreaking havoc, deflections, getting steals, turning defense into offense, and all that. So, Bulls aren't the deepest team at power forward. They have Patrick Williams starting. They played Derrick Jones Jr. there, and they're kind of just undersized there. And Javonte's undersized too, but he plays bigger than he is with his energy and with his athleticism. So that'll be a tough loss, and hopefully that he'll be back sometime in the next month or so.
Well, and we'll hope for the best. Go ahead, Adam.
DeMar DeRozan is a player I like to watch on the Bulls. I know another player is Kobe White, former Tar Heel, and you have Zach LaVine, you have Vucevic, Andre Drummond is another great player for the Bulls. So if everyone can stay healthy, could you see the Bulls? I know it's early in the season, but in the end, could you see them make the playoffs if everything goes their way?
If everything goes their way, I think they should definitely be a play-in team. I mentioned, I'm going to look at these standings again. I think they're like 3 games out of the 6th seed. They are 4 games behind the Pacers. The Pacers have been playing really great lately. They've been on a roll. So, but I don't know if they're going to keep that up. I don't know if the Pacers are going to make trades. We'll see. But I mean, I think the Bulls, they have an easier schedule coming up over here, like the rest of the month. It does get more difficult again towards the end of the season. But if they can make get some more wins, pile some more wins here the rest of January, maybe move up the standings again. Because again, a lot of these other teams are just kind of very similar with where they're at. If they can, hopefully stay healthy. Again, DeMar got hurt last night against the Celtics, but it's a quad injury. He's questionable, I think, for the Wizards game tomorrow. I think he's going to do whatever he can to play. He had been playing through it. He's a tough guy. He's been one of the he's been just of his availability has been great. He just rarely misses games throughout his entire career. He's been kind of an Iron Man of sorts. So we'll see. Hopefully, I don't want him to push through it and make it worse, but and the way they've been playing lately, if they do keep it up, they certainly, again, should be a play-in team. They could challenge for the 6th seed. I think they got into too big a hole to get like anything higher than 6, just because those top 5 teams are all really, really good. And I'd be really surprised if the Bulls could catch any of those top 5. But if they could somehow get to 6, could they maybe put a scare on a team in like the first round, whether that's Milwaukee or Philly or Brooklyn or whoever that is? I know Brooklyn obviously is going to miss KD for a bit here. Maybe so they've beaten all these teams in the regular season. Not that the regular season is obviously different than the playoffs, but there is talent there, and the offense has looked a lot better lately, and Zach has looked a lot better lately. And if they are rolling and they are healthy going into the playoffs, they can at least be a dangerous team. Still don't really trust their defense and don't trust them overall, just because they've been inconsistent for a while here. But when they do play well, they can beat anybody, and they have won a bunch of games recently by doing that.
Yeah, looking at your schedule coming up, you have the Thunder at home, you have the Warriors at home, you have the game against the Pistons in Paris, France. You come here to North Carolina to play the Hornets at the end of January. You have the Magic on the road in Orlando. So I could see you guys having a really successful January and going into February. Because I can see you guys as a playing team. You guys have a lot of strong talent on the Bulls. So, like you mentioned, you've beaten Milwaukee and
Milwaukee twice, Boston twice, Brooklyn.
Yeah,
They
and
beat
yeah,
Philly the
I
other
mean,
day. And they didn't have
but
Embiid, but they've got a lot of big wins.
oh yeah,
The
but
issue, I mean, we talk about like
ranking,
the easier
yeah,
schedule. The easier schedule coming up, as you mentioned, some of those games that you mentioned coming up. The
yeah.
problem is that
I
they've
mean,
had issues to get beating those teams. So for me to believe in them, they got to start beating some of these lesser teams. Like that's tomorrow against the Wizards without Bradley Beal. I mean, that's the game the Bulls need to win. I know the Bulls and Wizards played earlier this year without Beal, and the Bulls barely won, and that was at the United Center, and the Wizards beat them right at the start of the year. I believe they were mostly healthy that game, that first game, or one of those early games of the year. But the Bulls have had some issues with the Wizards, Beal or not. So but this is a game where if the Bulls are serious about making moves up the standings, I guess we'll see if DeRozan plays. But with the Wizards missing their best player, it's a game the Bulls got to win, and it's a game that they have had struggles in where they need to come take care of business against these lesser teams, and then they lay an egg. It's happened too many times this year, so that'll be a good measuring stick game for them after this tough loss in Boston and after the winning streak they had, to see if they could come beat a team that they should beat.
And Jason, the weird part is the Warriors. You look at the Warriors at 20 wins and 20 losses. I mean, that's a team that goes back and forth with being a really good team and then going to be a really bad team. That team is not consistent for a team that's won that has won world championships.
Yeah, it's just the home road thing. I believe they still have the best home record and the worst road record. At one point, very recently, they had the best home record in the NBA and the worst road record. Right now, I think they're tied, or they were. A couple teams are 17-3 at home. The Warriors are now 17-4. They're not the best home team anymore, but they're one of the best home records in the league. 17-4 at home, 3-16 on the road. That is absolutely crazy. And obviously, Steph has missed time, but they were bad on the road with Steph too. So that's the game where the Bulls playing the Warriors coming up this weekend. That's at the United Center. Steph should be back. I believe he's coming back tonight. But even then, the Warriors have been a bad road team. The Bulls got to win that game. Even if Steph is there, so that's going to be a big game for the Bulls as well. It's been weird to watch the Warriors be so good at home and such a disaster on the road. It's been a really crazy thing to watch coming off their championship.
That's true,
Chris.
Well, Jason, thank you so much. George, thank you for filling in for me. I appreciate it. You did a great job. And Jason, good luck to the Bulls. Tomorrow night against the Wizards. I think Bradley Beal might be back. That's what Dave Johnson said, but it's an evaluation thing. But about hamstrings, it takes a while for things to get back to normal.
Yeah.
Hey, remember this? It's the year of Jordan.
Hey,
it's the year of Jordan. It's 23. Everyone's talking about it's the year of Jordan. So who knows?
Yeah. Hey, I like his shirt. NBA Jam
Jordan
shirt.
Shrug.
Yeah, I love that game.
I loved. I used to play. I loved NBA Jam. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, Jason. Have a great night, dude. Thanks for coming
on.
Take it easy, guys. Thanks for having me.
I see you. All right, that's Jason Patt, who is the managing editor of Clutch Sports, the app, which follows more of the Chicago Bulls out there in Chicago. So. The Bulls Wizards tomorrow night down in D.C. and then on Friday the Knicks are in town, and I'm going to go see the Knicks on Friday night because I never got a chance to see the Knicks when I was a kid. Because my father never wanted to come back in the city after working in the city every day, and I totally understand that.
I understand that. I understand that.
Chris, I'm hoping to get in my first NBA game next Monday.
You and I will compare notes because I'll go Friday. I'll write down stuff what I see because I haven't been doing NBA games since Orlando Magic played the Raptors 14 years ago. And some guy named Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard wasn't playing, but I ran into Patrick Ewing in the locker room after the game.
Oh, cool.
And I looked up and I'm like, are you Patrick Ewing? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, nice to meet you, sir. And I'm thinking to myself, please don't pound me. He's so big.
He's gonna step on you.
Yeah.
Actually,
he's like a pig.
Actually, guys, the Cleveland Cavaliers played a preseason game in Asheville when LeBron James was a rookie. So my dad and I went, to see LeBron as a rookie. And I was like, wow, that's cool.
Well, with this, before we introduce this guy, let me bring him up a little bit before you introduce him. He's one of the greatest lefties on the professional bowlers tour. If you think left-handed bowlers, you think George, you think Earl Anthony.
It's the first person again in my mind.
Earl Anthony was the guy, but and then you have Dave Davis and Johnny Petraglia, and And Dave Davis passed away a couple weeks ago, after Christmas, and this gentleman bowled against him in 1980 and won the Midas Open in Illinois for his second title, and he is now the PBA. He's a PBA Hall of Famer, and also he's the president of the Hall of Fame museum down in beautiful Arlington, Texas. Who, if you get a chance to get down to Arlington for the Cotton Bowl, and I think George, next time before me putting you in the basement, we should have gone there. You would have had a great time before. But at the time we didn't know who the heck each other were. But I know my friend Matt, had a great time there. So what's Adam?
You mentioned it's called one of the greatest lefties of all time. 2-time PBA Player of the Year. He's a huge hockey fan. So let's bring in the president of the International Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum, the one and only Mr. Mike Aulby.
Hey, Mike, you there?
Mike, thanks so much for joining us. And
I'm here. Need to be on.
How are you?
Good.
Cool. What was it like to bowl against Dave Davis for your first career title in the Midas Open?
Yeah, Dave is obviously one of the classic lefties. Such a smooth release and down and in type of player. And that tournament, Dave Davis led the field by 770 pins.
Wow.
And I was able to beat him on the television show, but kind of ran through the field. I qualified 5th. So, to get an opportunity to win one when somebody leads by that much is a rarity, obviously. And Dave's class guy, very fortunate to be on the Brunswick staff with him and Johnny Petraglia in the early 80s. And, very fortunate, but there was no better of a guy on and off the lanes than Dave Davis.
We're showing you a clip from 1981. You bowled in the Pennzoil Open. I think that's before the AC Delco Classic, right, Mike?
Would have been, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Chris, you left him hanging you left him hanging with a 7-pin.
Yeah, well, he makes a spare. We got to show him he knows how to make a spare.
Yeah, I did make that.
Yeah. Hey, what Parker Bone told me last week, and I played part of his interview on our page. He met Dave Davis because Dave Davis lived like 2 blocks away from him in New Jersey. And I said, that's pretty cool. And his mom must have knew the Davises or something like that and got him an opportunity to work with Dave. And Dave, improved his bowling because, Mike, if you make your spares, your average goes up. If you don't make the spares, your average goes down. And Parker was telling me last week over the phone, he's like, yeah, I was like a 150 average bowler until Dave Davis showed me a little tidbit here and a little bit there. And all of a sudden I made my spares. And I was bowling 250s, and I was, getting myself, where I want to be today. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So did you have somebody like that, Mike, to help you get yourself started, or you just learned from all the people you saw on tour?
No, I had a lot of help through the years. But if you look at Parker Bone's physical game, I mean, you see Dave Davis all over it. I mean, just a classic long arm swing and smooth and down and in. And Parker is very versatile and a classic gentleman. So he emulated Dave Davis on all aspects of it. And what a perfect person to do it with. And both great champions. And, I was when I was growing up, in the 70s, mid 70s, obviously it was Earl who was the top. And I followed Earl, but the one I followed was Johnny Petraglia. Johnny was more flamboyant, hooked it more and ran shots out and more exciting. And Earl just beat you. John a little more flamboyant doing it, but and Johnny and Dave Davis obviously were very close and through the years and represented Brunswick so well, and I mean Johnny still does, and so I was fortunate to grow up at a time when those guys were the leaders, and they were just great role models. I mean, they not only did they do it right with the bowling ball, but they did it right with the way they acted. I mean, they're very professional, whether it was an exhibition or just a flat just bowling, a tournament. I mean, you couldn't ask for better people to follow.
Yeah. And Mike, when I was growing up, and George probably was watching. Did you watch a lot of bowling, George, when you were a kid, like my age? I know Saturday afternoons and this time every Saturday afternoon.
Of course, it's all I did on Saturday afternoon was watch these guys on TV. Come on.
Is that appointment television for sure? Right?
Hey, My mom, I said this to Norm Duke, Mike. My mom put me in front of the TV, and I was mesmerized by the orange bowling ball going down on ABC's Professional Bowlers Tour. And Norm Duke goes, "Can I get some money from your mother for babysitting?"
Because these guys inspired me to go become a bowling coach. When I was a teenager, I went out and got my coaching certificate from the United States Bowling Association.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are what got me into the sport, and I shared back with the other kids.
Yeah, you can never have enough good coaching. And, through the years, I was very fortunate to have different coaches, whether it was John Jowdy with Columbia or Fred Borden, the Team USA coach. Tom Corris wrote books. I mean, just all through the years, I tried to be as much of a student of the game as I could. And even as a kid, traveling around every night to a different bowling center to watch the local Classic League Bowl to try to pick up, any kind of points or tips I could find. And one thing through the years for me, you just never felt like you could, learn enough. So how it would adapt to your game. I mean, that was the key to me. Just always continue to learn and never feel like you had it figured out, because the minute you thought you had it figured out was when it bites you right in the butt,
Yeah. Well, Mike, when you were up on the pros, and I was talking to my friend Matt, I'll bring him in a minute. Him and I were talking the other day. You were I called you like a smooth operator, because when you got up to the line, it never saw like you had anything out of whack. Yeah, you were so you made sure everything was perfect. You made sure everything was good. And if you had that shot clock, you didn't care. You paid $250 for that shot clock they had. But I felt like when I was a kid growing up, it was like I'm sitting here going, this guy is taking his time, and he's thinking what he needs, and he's just a smooth operator. And I feel like watching you on TV, I was like, wow. And I tried to do it myself when I was a kid at rec bowling, but some guy named Pete Weber made me want to speed up and run things out,
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always just tried to let the ball do all the work. I mean, that was the key for me, to keep me from overhitting it or overturning it or trying to do too much to it. And it's let the weight of the ball control your arm swing. The weight of the ball is always going to be the constant. It's the minute you tried to add muscle to it that became inconsistent. So that was kind of what I lived by.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right, Mike Aulby's on the program, and say hello to Mike.
Hey,
Matt. Mike. Yeah. Well, yes, Matt. So yeah, I mean, I know when I was younger and stuff, watch you and P. Weber and Petraglia. Like, I mean, it was just great watching the Pro Bowlers Tour. It was phenomenal. I know that me and Chris watched it all the time and everything.
Religiously.
So, but yes, we did. but yeah, just tell me like what the tour meant for you, and your family and everything, and like what does it mean? I guess. What do you think it means to the fans?
So for me, I mean, everything I have, whether it's my family, I went my wife through bowling. I mean, everything that I have is all bowling related, and I've never met any nicer people than I've met in a bowling center, and I'll tell you, it's I was very fortunate, and I don't take that for granted, that the career I had, or the people I've met, or the things I've been able to do, and it's just you respect it, and there's nothing that you can't remember as a kid, if nothing like Nelson Burton Jr. and Chris Schenkel and those Saturday afternoons. So when I was fortunate enough to make a show, I would go early. I'd go way early. I'd get to know the guys on the television crew, and because you didn't make all that many shows, if you think about it in the average through the years, how many times you actually made television. So I would go and just take the whole experience in and enjoy it. So because there was nothing like that rush when you're able to bowl well or to actually win the title. I mean, what a feeling. I mean, and when they start again on Monday after Saturday afternoon, everybody's back to zero. So it's a fleeting moment.
Yeah. George, you got a question for Mike, right?
So actually, Mike, a couple things. One, I was looking at your bio. You have 2 skating rinks in Carmel, Indiana, which I actually live in the northern part of the state, near the Michigan border.
Uh-huh.
And you have a bowling alley in Lafayette. I'm going to have to go check that out.
Oh, come see us. Yeah, come see us for sure.
Are you in the state of Indiana, or?
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm on the north side of Indianapolis. I'm in Carmel.
Okay.
I live up here. I grew up on the south side of Indy, but always been in Indiana. So yeah, we've got Lafayette, Indiana. We've had that bowling center for 20. We're celebrating our 25th year there.
Excellent.
And then the ice rinks are both here. One has 2 sheets of ice, and the other one has a single sheet. And then we also run an outdoor rink at the Carmel, at the city of Carmel. We operate that for them. So
awesome.
Nice. That's
on
cool.
the business side of it, I used to actually live in Connecticut before I moved out here to Indiana, and I saw that you actually won the Greater Hartford Open at Windsor Locks.
Windsor Locks, oh yeah.
We've had a couple of folks on the show, and it always amazed me about where the bowling alley is located in reference to the airport.
The flight pattern, yeah.
Exactly. Flying right over the bowling alley. Did you ever have an experience where you were in a tournament there and something startled you and you found out that it was a plane flying over?
Well, I think early on you learn real quickly where that place is at. And, 1980 was my first year ever there. And I actually finished 3rd in the U.S. Open there in 1980 when Steve Martin won. And so you learn real fast about the particulars. And I remember making the show one year there, and not the year I won, but I remember Nelson Burton Jr., Bo always would do at the start of the show, do his talk about what's happening during the week. And his big discussion was how dry the lanes were and how it was chewing up the bowling balls because of the flight pattern and the planes flying over and causing all the dust and dirt to land on the lane and soaking up the oil. So I remember that extensively. But, one of the other shows there was a bomb scare. So that was another one where, I actually
1990, wasn't it, Mike? 1990?
probably right in there, because I lost my first match on TV and got into the motorhome with my brother-in-law, Steve Cook, and we left to go to the next stop. And then we were watching it on TV, and then that's what they said about the bomb. So it's like, wow, I guess that was a good one to lose early on. Get out.
Wow.
Well, Mike, I was, I was looking at your, I knew your career since I was a kid growing up. And did you like bowling in Baltimore? Because I feel like Baltimore with the Fairlanes Open was like the greatest bowling stop, because to me, I felt like I learned a lot more about the city of Baltimore through the Professional Bowlers Tour than I learned from my teachers, because I feel like my teachers never took time to show us, because we're like, 20 minutes, or I'm like 20 minutes from the city here, where I live in Cockeysville. And I feel like I learned a lot, with bowling on TV.
Yeah, Baltimore was, was quite an experience for me. I always enjoyed Baltimore. I got my second ever check there in 1979, and bowling at all the fair lanes through there, and Wally Hall is a great Hall of Famer in our industry, who was the leader and led that entire corporation. What a wonderful man, and has done a wonderful job in our industry. But what was always challenging about Baltimore was a similar type of things, like the lanes were always challenging because of the surface, and we bowled in a lot of different places there. But what I learned most about in Baltimore was, because there are certain centers that were split, whether it was duck pins, half of it was ducks and the other half was 10 pins. And so being new to traveling and being out and around, I'd never seen ducks, and so we would bowl ducks, and then the next week you wouldn't cash because your timing was so off, because you beat the foul line and the ball was still behind you somewhere. So it was always challenging because of that. But I just, it's a great sports town. I mean, I'd go watch the Skipjacks play hockey. I'd watch the Capitals a couple times, and and if you don't mind me taking a little bit of a little side, John, here, because I was a big Baltimore Colt fan. I mean, since I was 9 years old in '69. Wow. When they lost the Super Bowl to the Jets. I mean, I love the Colts. And then, of course, they moved here in Indy in 1984, and I've been a season ticket holder ever since. And
that's cool.
So, I was always a big Colts fan, and I got to know a few people there. And the year after the Colts moved in 84, I went back in 85, and a gentleman I got to know through the years come to me and says, "Hey, I've got something I'm going to give you, and I want you to take it. And just please don't talk about it or ask any more about it. Just take it and enjoy it." And he had a whole box of Baltimore Colt items that his family had boxed up. And he said, "Look," I said, "Hey," he said, no, seriously. We don't want this stuff anymore. We don't want to talk about it. You take it and enjoy it. and I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Wow.
I had this whole, this box had, bobbleheads and a program with Johnny Unitas sign. I mean, it's just unbelievable the amount of things. So of course, to a collector and a big Colts fan, it was just absolutely awesome, and still have all that stuff today. And it was just, but no, Baltimore to me has always been a great city, and I always enjoyed going there.
And Mike, it's okay. I have my girlfriend's parents have Ravens season tickets, and they don't talk about the Colts because.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But I give you full reign to talk about it because you're a friend of the show, and I know if I want to get to Indianapolis to watch a Colt game, or they want to call it the horseshoe.
Yes.
Right. It'd be fun to come out there and watch one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good. We enjoy the Colts, and obviously, I'm sure most people were in Baltimore happy to see the season this year.
Yeah. Matt has the last question. Matt, go ahead.
Yes, Mike. Just one quick question. So I know you have a lot of great moments with you on the PBA tour and everything. So what is your top moment when you're on the tour?
Oh, my top moment. Yeah, I always kind of look at them differently. I mean, probably the first one. I mean, I asked several because of the different degrees of what they mean, but the first one was winning the PBA National Championships in '79 against Earl in Las Vegas. I mean, my first title was a major, and not knowing my talent level, and as a naive 19-year-old, to finally win a tournament, and cementing the fact that I can do this, and was just it took a long time for me to realize it. The next moment for me would be shooting 300 in Wichita on television in the championship game to beat Ozio with his 279. Never thought I would ever shoot 300 on television. It was just a tremendous day that, I still enjoy seeing and on the tapes. And then lastly, the Tournament Champions was one that always seemed to elude me. I bowled well in Akron, but never seemed to finish it off. And then to win the Tournament Champions in '95 in Chicago to complete the Triple Crown and Grand Slam and all those things was just, it's one of those days that, I still remember to this moment. I mean, so that's why I started to say so many different ones, but they all kind of have a different meaning for me.
Exactly.
Well, guys, it was a pleasure watching you on the tour and everything. So, yeah, I mean, good luck with your, best of luck with your endeavors.
Thanks, man.
Well, Mike, it's really great to have you on. And real quick before I let you go, how's the Hall of Fame going down in Texas?
Going good. We're obviously pandemic. People are open and coming in to see us. The board just met right before the holidays, and we're starting our remodeling going on. So we're starting with our science and technology room, and it's going to start with it's the Bill and Barb Crispin room, which Bill and Barb Crispin are the owners of Storm. Great people, and Bill's actually my doubles partner at the USBC tournament. So they're going to get us started, and that's the first room we're going to do, and then next one's the Hall of Fame room. So we're off and running and excited about it.
Hey, if you ever remodel, and can I borrow Chris Schenkel's microphone for once in one of my broadcasts?
That's former Hoosier there.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great when I was down there and I saw it. I'm like, that Chris Schenkel's microphone.
Yeah,
and I'm like staring at it like it's like Yankee Stadium to me. I'm like, I see like gold around it. I'm like, I can't take it home with me. That's not nice. Come on.
Yeah, I'll have to come down sometime and we'll get you into the vault, the back tour, so where you can see all the stuff that's not on display. That's the exciting part.
Well, that'll be my birthday trip. I mean,
there you go.
Same here.
Yeah, Carrie Williams does a wonderful job for us as our curator. She does a tremendous job.
That's great. Well, Mike, thanks so much for coming on, and I appreciate you taking some time to talk with Dave Davis and how he meant to the sport. And hopefully, people like me and the new generation gets to know you too. And hopefully they'll honor you like they honored Dave Davis and everybody else.
Well, thank you. We appreciate what you do for the industry and following bowling and continue to get the word out there. And anytime, I always enjoy talking to you guys. Thank you so much. And, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
Mike.
All right, folks. This is Mike Aulby. Little Chris is pretty happy right now talking to Mike Aulby.
Because so is little Adam.
And Chris, second that, and Adam, I'll third that.
And Chris, he lives here in Indiana.
I know,
Chris,
and
you
I'm
need to
thinking
get the
maybe
heck out here.
I have his phone number. Maybe
Chris,
next time I get out there,
we need to get you out here, and we need to go down to Lafayette, and we need to go hit some frames down at his bowling alley with Mike Aulby. That would be something for you.
That'll be awesome.
That may be a trip for next year. Called.
Maybe we do it for the Big Ten Media Day. Maybe we go down. Maybe I'll get off a couple days earlier. Get there, go down to Lafayette, bowl, and then go to the Media Day, and then go back down there and bowl.
Chris, the question is, would we be able to keep the ball on the lane and not in the gutter because we're going to be bowling with the legend?
Oh, I will take a lesson from Mike Aulby. That's like taking a lesson from Babe Ruth.
Amen.
I'll do whatever it takes.
I get myself back in fighting shape if it meant me bowling with Mike Aulby.
I know.
Yes, George.
Hey, Matt and I bowled down. We went down to Grand Prairie a couple years ago when we were down there for the Cotton Bowl, and it was pretty cool sitting there, going to that alley. And I walked in there and I said to the guy, "Where's the chandeliers?" And he goes, "What do you mean about the chandeliers?" I'm like, "There were chandeliers here when I was a kid on TV." Because Chris Frankel used to talk about it all the time. He goes, "They freaking stole them." I'm like, "They stole them?" I'm like, "What do you do with? Who's going to steal candles, man?"
You don't ignore what's in my jacket. Just move on. Nothing but a scene.
Yeah, it was you then. You're like, "Back at him." Put me in the dungeon of a Jerry World. We were, 8:24. We're going to talk a little bit about the other championship game. It was in Texas. It was Frisco, Texas. South Dakota State and North Dakota State played each other. The border war in Texas. That's what they called it. The border war. It was like, really? But South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits beat the Bison.
They did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
they did. When that wasn't a close game either. Of course, that was much closer than the national championship game.
Well, it was close to going in the second quarter, but the key to the game was North Dakota was driving. Okay, and I got the highlight here if I could find it. They were running the football, and their guy decided to fumble it, and he fumbled the ball and put it right in the. Here it is. I got it right here. Fumbled it. And that turned over turnover, and the Bison never turned the football over a lot. They're like what, Alabama, the SBS area, and you don't see them having a terrible game. But here's the play. So it's 14-7 South Dakota, and here's the run.
Ball.
Puffed it up.
I can hear Keith Jackson right now going, "Bubba!" And then that was the turning point because South Dakota State gets the football, and right away the next play they marched down for a touchdown. Right away, boom!
Yep.
And it was like right away. It was like 21-7, and I just felt like North Dakota State couldn't catch up to that. So hey, still a good season. Don't get me wrong, but it's good for the Jackrabbits. Of South Dakota State. I like that name, Jackrabbits.
Yeah, actually, guys, I have a question for all of you. With North Dakota's success in FCS, we've seen teams like James Madison move, to the FBS, Appalachian State, Marshall. Could you see North Dakota State one day eventually moving to the FBS?
They're a great program, Adam.
Yeah, they're a good program.
They're a great program. They would be contenders. And with the way that the carousel of schools moving in and out of different conferences, they can go compete in the Pac-12. They can go avoid out there.
Oh yeah,
and they've upset quite a few of FBS teams. So when the Bisons play FBS teams, that's like automatic upset alert.
Yeah, and get this: the Jackrabbits, they were undefeated in the the SBS part of it, they only lost to Iowa by a score of 7-3.
Yes, I saw that game, 7-3. I mean, and the
they could have beat
Jackrabbits.
Iowa, and they could have been undefeated, even beating a Power 5 school.
Yeah, the Jackrabbits were close to beating a Big Ten school.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It
But
is.
speaking of teams going to the next level, James Madison, nobody gave him any credit this year, but they won the Sun Belt Eastern Conference, but they couldn't go to the championship game because they're in that transition stage that you have to spend 1 year as a you got to get yourself acclimated to the to their the Power 5 stuff. But Sam Houston State, they're moving on to Conference USA next year.
Yep, true.
Yes, they are.
And if you could anyone and look at TCU, okay? I mean, you can bring it around to TCU and say, you know what, that team's pretty darn good. And for people to be putting them down and asking why were they there, they were legitimate.
Hey,
you can only help yourself and do what you're supposed to do along the way. They beat. I'm not going to say they meet a good Michigan team. Okay, I'm not going to say the M in front of their name. I'll call them Fishigan. But they beat them fair and square, and they earn their place.
Right.
These people call them little schools, but they're not.
Yeah.
They have heart. They have desire. You could call them the Rudies of the football world, right?
Yeah.
I wish there's some teams that had the heart of these guys at TCU.
Hey, George, we got to go next year. JMU's taking on Connecticut next year.
I'm not going to Connecticut.
Oh, come on now. Yes, I'll go with you. I have relatives there.
Chris, you can't make me go back to Rensselaer. You can't make me go back to Rensselaer Field. Come on.
But speaking of next year, we got to look at next year's schedule. We'll bring it up. We got
tickets would be way too expensive for that game anyway because UConn thinks that they're this team and they just want to overprice themselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt, you got to hear the story behind it at some point.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will. But yeah, George, it's just incredible because I mean, you do have a lot of teams like TCU, and it's like TCU, just like what I said at the beginning of this radio cast, of this radio show, is that they should be very proud of themselves. I mean, you can only have one champion, that's it. You can't have 2 champions or 5 champions, okay? There's only one champion, that's it. And so TCU finished second to Georgia and SEC team. So, I mean, they should feel very proud that they got into the championship game, and they played tough for maybe a quarter, maybe slightly more, okay? But, I mean, so they should feel very proud of what they've done with the program and stuff.
And they could have been a South Dakota because when you look at North Dakota and the dominance that they've had in that division, they could have been a South Dakota if TCU just had a few more pieces.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I want to like we were just talking to Chris before the show, Chris from Oklahoma. I want to see Colorado take on TCU. Come on, we'll see. Come on, Dion. Yeah, you were there yesterday watching the national championship, soaking it in, trying to, pull out the Colorado brand on everybody. Okay, let's go down to Texas and see how and see if your son can play against TCU. And we'll call us after that game is over. And if you get get beat up real bad and your head between your tail and between your legs, and go back to Boulder. And I think he's just trying to make his program what it is, but it's not. You got to spend a couple of years. He was just very lucky down in Jackson State that he had people who were pretty good.
Well, it's like everything else with that, Chris. You lured a bunch of kids into the program, and then you walk away.
Right.
I feel sorry for the kids that he walked away from.
Well, let's just look at the games coming up. Next year. Let's start everything now until the start of media day. We'll break down every conference and look at the what their schedules are. Like the ACC. Let's bring in the ACC schedule next year for the first game of the year. Right now, Saturday, September 2nd, North Carolina, who played against Oregon in the Holiday Bowl have to take on South Carolina and Charlotte. Okay. All right. So Charlotte, South Carolina's coming off a loss to Notre Dame, because of that Gator Bowl. And then if you look at another game, Louisville taking on Georgia Tech. Louisville has Jeff Brom now as the head coach. Georgia Tech has a new coach. They're playing in Atlanta for I think it's the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic. And you go from there. And then Virginia takes on Tennessee in Nashville that same day. And then, Adam, rematch in Orlando. Brian Kelly's little engine that could, going back to Orlando, taking on Mike Norvell and the High Flyer and Seminoles, and we'll see how. Yes, that game in New Orleans was a great game by the block field goal. Now we'll see how Florida State could do with everybody coming back.
Yeah.
And we'll see what LSU has, because Brian Kelly likes to toot his own horn. You're going to hear about it all spring long, right, George? All spring long, you're going to hear how LSU's this great team and blah, 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 blah. Who?
George who? Yeah, because I forget that name. That name kind of just goes right over my head.
I don't know.
Matt, Chris knows my philosophy. It's the name that shall not be spoken.
Yep.
Well, yes, exactly. And you know what, George, you and me feel the same way.
Yeah, I agree. I just think, and I don't like that guy either, because I think that guy's a tool bag. And then like the final week, Texas A&M, where you see what Jimbo Fisher brought in, George?
No.
He brought in what's his name, Bobby Petrino as his offensive coordinator.
Wow.
Bobby Petrino. This is their all-star lineup of coaches. You have Bobby Petrino, Steve Adazio. You have DJ Durkin, who I don't know how he still has a job. If you're watching this program, why does he still have a job? Because he killed a kid. And then you have Bobby Petrino. It's like this is like I guess Jimbo realized that his butt is on fire down there in Texas Station and needs to do something. Because he's going to probably be he might be working for me next year.
Walking the line.
Yeah.
Actually, Chris, I have some news for you.
Yes.
Because I found this online. Florida State is expected to hire Patrick Surtain Sr. as its next defensive back coach.
Okay.
So you bring someone in like Patrick Surtain in, for the DBs down in Tallahassee. Florida is called. I was looking at the way too early top 25 rankings on ESPN.com. Florida State, I believe, was number 4, the highest ranked ACC team. So it's you look could. Oh yeah. Did you guys also see that they've already started to promote Jordan Travis for Heisman next year?
Really?
And we're January 10th.
That's what it's all about, Chris. It's about getting the name out there. It's never too early for these schools.
Hey, if we get an ACC kickoff and the Big Ten kickoff, I'll bring a campaign slogan down there for Jordan Travis.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's change the page here. Baseball. A lot of stuff going on in hot stove baseball around here. Baltimore is coming off a surprising, almost made it in the postseason this year, George. They came up to the last minute. They lost that final weekend. But they're retooling, or whatever Mike Elias is doing down there in the And yes, I did hear today that Carlos Correa did go back to Minnesota. Can I say something? Bye-bye. Because that guy's a cancer. No offense. That was just completely uncalled for with his physical, and he needs to understand that you're not going to get the money with a bad leg. So Adam doesn't get the pay raise if he has a bad shoulder at Publix. Or George gets.
That's right.
George gets his own office anyway. So what am I complaining?
My own office. Thank you very much.
But anyway, so let's bring in Connor Newcomb, who covers the Orioles for Lock On Orioles. Is a publication here. Hey, Connor, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing great. We're just talking about how Carlos Correa, going back to Minnesota. Get back there. We don't need you. Yeah, because I'm a big Mets fan. So I'm tired. Bye. Have a good day.
He's getting about half the contract, but I mean, you know who probably feels good right now is the Giants, because everybody made fun of the Giants and said, oh my, how would you, void that contract? And the team with all the money in the world didn't want to give it to him. So something's got to be wrong with his leg or his ankle or whatever.
Well, they did, both teams saw it, the Giants and the Mets, and they were very concerned about it because it's something he did in minor league baseball. But I heard through the grapevine that when my brother and I were talking about it, it's pretty sad that LA told you no. The Giants were the only team who were going to give you whatever you wanted because you're a cancer. You're a cancer in that locker room, and you're the one who basically brought out you're part of that cheating scandal. With the Astros. So do you want somebody who was like that on your roster who basically thinks his stuff is like, you're Ken Griffey Jr.? Not really.
I mean, I would have taken him on the Orioles.
I know the Orioles will get anybody they need.
The O's would have never given him the money it would have taken, but I would have taken him in Baltimore.
Yeah, but but let's talk about the Orioles. They brought, they're getting some players. They brought in James McCann from the Mets to back up Ashley Rutschman. So that might be a good, but for James, he's used to be a starting catcher. I don't know how he's going to sit on the bench waiting for an AB or an at bat or something.
Yeah, he might play a little more than your regular backup catcher. I think that's just because, not that he was a good hitter with the Mets, but in his career when he's been a good hitter, mostly with the White Sox, he could hit lefties pretty well. That's something Adley, despite having an amazing rookie season, did not do very well. So, when Adley Rutschman needs a day off on a Sunday, day game after a night game, maybe a day game on a Wednesday, James McCann is so much better. And here's the thing, McCann did not look good for the Mets. I think we all know that. It was tough to watch him play, especially at the plate. But the Orioles had Robinson Chirinos as their backup last year. He couldn't hit. He couldn't field. He probably played one too many years. He should have retired after last season. And so the Orioles, they did upgrade. But when you have Adley Rutschman, it almost really doesn't matter that much who your backup catcher is when you have a guy who might be the best catcher in baseball, 2 years from now.
Yeah, he was pretty good with the White Sox, and the Mets picked him up after years with the White Sox. And like you said, an injury last year, and he couldn't even hit the ball sometimes out in the infield.
It's more about the defense than the offense when you got a guy in Rutschman who's so good.
Yeah, and Adley is like the next. I feel like when he came up last year, I remember the day I was at work. And it was like, I think it was a Friday night. They played, I think, the Angels. It was like an extra inning game. And all of a sudden I get this text message the next day going, Adley's coming up tonight to take on the Angels. I'm like, oh, that must have been something sitting there in the holster for a couple of days. Just like, geez.
Yeah, they were waiting.
That was good, Yeah,
they were waiting for the moment. I was in the ballpark the night he got called up. They lost that game, but it was, you wouldn't have known it, the fans leaving the ballpark, that the Orioles lost that game. That's how excited everybody was that night.
That's cool. George, you got a question for Connor?
So, Connor, here it is. I'm not even wanting to rush the schedule because we just started in 2023. But my goodness, pitchers and catchers report on Valentine's Day.
Really?
A month and 4 days from today.
Oh.
Wow.
It's coming up.
So
it's coming up.
It's crazy.
You think about it too, because this season ran long because of the lockout and they had to start late. So this is really one of the shorter off seasons that Major League Baseball's ever had. So, I don't know if it'll be so short that it'll affect guys, but you add that together with the fact that there's a World Baseball Classic this year. So guys are going to be leaving spring training to go play in that, which I love. I think that's an awesome event. But players are maybe never going to have experienced a shorter offseason than they do this year. That usually affects pitchers way more than it affects hitters. So, we'll see if there's any maybe more early season injuries, maybe some teams going with like 6-man rotations this year. We'll see how it impacts some teams.
And Connor, the big controversy going into last season down there at Camden Yards, or as us Yankee fans call it, Bronx South. How did the wall work out? Did that change anything for the Orioles, making that wall higher than it was before?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Orioles had a top 5 bullpen in baseball for most of the year. And their starting rotation, I wouldn't call it good, but the starting rotation the Orioles had for the past 5 years was laughable, and it became major league quality this year. Now, you can say that's a lot of guys getting better, which happened. But when you look at their roster, they got helped by the wall. And the thing is, you could say, oh, it was a fluke that they get helped by the wall, but the wall's staying that way. So theoretically, it's just going to continue to help Orioles pitchers every year. And the big thing it did, it probably swung too far in the other direction. Like Camden Yards was basically the second best hitters park besides Colorado before they changed the wall. It swung it to a top 10 pitchers park. I don't think that was the plan. I think the plan was to just kind of make it league average in terms of, it's not favoring hitters too much. It's not favoring pitchers too much. It is tough to hit a homer. I mean, Aaron Judge was complaining about the wall. That first series that the Yankees played in Baltimore, he hit a couple balls off the wall, which would have been 10 rows deep, the year before. I mean, Aaron Judge could add 64, 65 this year if that wall were normal. And basically what it does is, I think the Orioles, as they're building this, kind of rebuilding this whole organization, their hitters are always going to be ahead of their pitchers. That's just how they've drafted. It's how they've developed. But you can do that when you've now built this gigantic ballpark out there. And what they did last year is they played basically a center fielder, Austin Hayes, in left field to patrol that area. And it honestly really helped them. I mean, it wasn't, I won't say it's a top 3 reason why the Orioles had a winning record finally, but it's in the top 10. Like it was a factor.
You know what? I haven't been to Camden Yards since they built that new wall, because to me it looks kind of like a weird looking thing down there, going like, what the heck is that? But put some advertisement out there, make it look a little better.
It's probably coming at some point. They'll be.
Yeah. But it's great that we had here in Baltimore. Normally in September 1st, everybody around here talks about Ravens football and how Ravens take over the sports world here. We were still talking about baseball all the way up to like October 3rd, 4th, in the beginning of October, and people around here were like, "What's going on here? Like we have baseball." What's that? Yeah,
it was awesome to see. And I mean, they obviously didn't make the playoffs. They got eliminated, I think, with 4 or 5 games remaining. The Orioles were eliminated, but they were playing a game in October. I believe they got eliminated October 1st. They were playing a game in October in Yankee Stadium that they won, and they were still alive for the playoffs. I mean, the last 4 years, you're looking at a team that's just trying to scratch to 60 wins in October for the season. And instead, it was a team that had a winning record and stayed in the race. And it hurt that they didn't play their best baseball in September. Their worst 2 months were April and September. It was funny. They got off to an awful start, a poor finish. But in those between, I mean, they were, holding water with a lot of the best teams in the American League. And as they get more experience, they'll be able to start a season better and finish a season better. But yeah, it was nice, to have a little Orioles talk there in August and September, and just not be training camp started, preseason games, and here come the Ravens. It's back to what it was, maybe 8-10 years ago when the Orioles first got good again under Buck Showalter. And, people obviously talked about the Ravens because they won a Super Bowl back then, but there was almost just as much talk about the Orioles because they were winning the division and getting to the playoffs.
Exactly. Adam, you have the last question. Go ahead.
You were mentioning the playoffs, Connor. So do you think the Orioles have a shot to make the playoffs this year? I mean, you talked about Adley Rutschman. You have Grayson Rodriguez, a top prospect in Baltimore. So could you see the Orioles making the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it could happen. I mean, they finished 3 games out this year. They won 83 games. With the extra wild card spot that got introduced, it makes it a little bit easier. There's an extra playoff team in each league. What hurts the O's, obviously, is the division they play in. I mean, you've got all 5 teams trying to get to the playoffs. Now, I don't really know what the Red Sox are doing. I think the Orioles might be a better team than them right now, but they're still trying to make the playoffs, at least I think. And so there's not many other divisions in baseball where all 5 teams at this moment are legitimately contenders to get into the playoffs. So that's going to hurt. But they've got a whole lot of young talent building off that team. I think the only thing that's the issue here is they really haven't done much to add to the team this offseason. They've made very small, kind of minor on the edges upgrades with a couple of veterans like Kyle Gibson and Adam Frazier and James McCann, who we talked about. They brought Michael Givens back. but none of those guys are moving the needle. They're just nice veterans in the clubhouse who will make your team slightly better. They're going to rely on a lot of young guys. That could mean you kind of take a step back. Some guys struggle, you win 70 games. That also could mean that you win 87 and you get a wild card. Like, there's no way they win this division. The Yankees are too good. The Blue Jays are too good. Heck, the Rays are too good. Yeah. But there's enough wild card teams now that the Orioles have some talent. And you mentioned Grayson Rodriguez, top pitching prospect, finally going to make his debut. If he's the real deal, that kind of takes them to another level. And I still think it's more likely than not they miss the playoffs. But even if they do, I'm pretty safe to say they're going to have a winning record and they're going to be in it for most of the year.
Exactly. Well, Connor, talk about what you do with Locked On Orioles podcast. You talk Orioles baseball all through the off season, and you get all the cool guys from Camden Yards to come on, right?
Yeah, Locked On Orioles podcast. You can get it wherever you find your podcast. We're on YouTube as well. Throughout the off season, 3 days a week, drop episodes, and then we're the only podcast out there that does this. But during the season, once spring training starts, 5 days a week. Episodes are 20, 25 minutes, so nice short little bites that are out in the morning, and you get a Monday through Friday, basically recapping the game, talking about news and notes about the minors and the majors, and a good way to keep yourself updated about the Orioles.
That's cool. Are you going down to spring training this year, or?
I am not. I have still not been.
I haven't been either. I mean, I went down once when I was, the Rays were playing in Disney, but it was an exhibition game against, like World Baseball Classic. It was Venezuela. It was pretty cool. Don't get me wrong. It was nice to see an international team, but that was not, to me, it was spring training, but it was still fun.
Yeah. I mean, my uncle, huge lifelong Orioles fan, retires this summer, and he's always said, as soon as I retire, we're going to spring training. So the sights are on 2024 spring training to be my first one.
That's awesome. That's cool. Well, don't be a stranger. Come on back. We'll have you on before start of spring training.
Of course. Sounds good to me. Thank you, guys.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
You too.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks, Connor.
All right, that's Connor Newcomb, who does the host of Locked On Orioles podcast. So speaking of Orioles baseball, I know this guy, George, you love talking to some former Yankees. Good. We had him on last year. He was doing, he was working in that draft league down in, what is he doing? What is he doing? I don't want to know what he's doing. Is he bringing out his Yankees?
Well, maybe George is taking a timeout.
I don't know. He might, his wife might call time. No,
he's bringing out the Babe Ruth jersey.
He's bringing in the Bronx Bombers. Yeah, we're speaking to
George Herman Ruth.
Hell yeah!
Well, this guy was on he was doing that draft league out in Frederick and all the other teams. But this year, what is this? Is everybody bringing out their stuff?
I got Blue Jay stuff since he was a former Blue Jay.
Oh, okay, former Blue Jay. I was like, who's bringing Homer Bush here? I don't know what Homer did. Changing, it's like what supermodel month. We're like, what show off the Yankee gear, the Blue Jays gear. I got my Chief jersey on today with Marcus Allen. So first off, congratulations on getting the job with the Atlantic League with the Riverhawks of Staten Island. That's pretty cool.
Hey, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. And man, it's safe to say you know who my two favorites are on this show.
Thanks, Homer.
You can call me a homer all you want.
The last time we had you on, Homer, we showed you your first home run. I found another video on YouTube when you were playing the Yankee Stadium. This is against the Blue Jays, and I guess you like led off the game with a double or something. Let me bring it up here. Let me find it first, and I'll bring it right to you in a minute here. But talk about how did this job come about? With Staten Island.
Great question. Well, I really don't know how the conversation started, but what I can say, by the time it got to me, it was a very powerful individual saying, "Hey, we'd like to have a phone conversation about managing in the independent league." And I've always felt if New York came knocking in any capacity, I was going to take the call and listen. So I did, and hit it off with the young man, Eric Scheffler, who's the president of the Ferryhawks. And a couple weeks later, they offered me the job.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, what did you learn out there in that draft league? Because it seemed like it was a pretty cool thing with all these kids trying to get drafted in the NBA and Major League Baseball. Was it fun?
It really was, and as you know, that season is 2 halves, right? So the first half, I got an opportunity to get my feet wet. It's a summer collegiate league, so you really don't want to change the guys too much. But the second half, a little bit more competitive, and so I was able to make some moves more in the second half than the first half. And so I took what I learned in the first half and applied it in the second half.
Nice. Yeah. So with this new Atlantic League, you got a lot of cool. They got a new team in Frederick. I don't know how they're going to be playing baseball on the same field. I guess they're going to split time between the draft league and I guess the Atlantic team will probably play at 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's great. This league is growing. You got a lot of different. You got Lancaster, who won the championship last year. We had Coach Ross on the Peoples, who was on the show with us. And the cool thing, a lot of former major leaguers, because I know you're probably going to run into some guy named Frank Viola.
That's right. Yeah.
So that'll be cool. Sit there, have a nice little conversation with Frank, and pick his brain about pitching and maybe use it against him.
Yeah. No, but I tell you what, the league is very competitive. Just looking at the data on each team, teams are winning in different kinds of ways. Some guys are aggressive on the bases with good pitching and defense. Some teams are actually have smaller parks. They can drive the ball out of the yard, so they have a little bit more of a balanced offense with solid pitching defense and also some good offensive numbers. So right now, I'm really just trying to figure out, as I build my roster, which approach I want to take. But one element you can guarantee is going to be some speed. That you tend to manage how you play, right?
Yep, you play the old-fashioned. My dad used to say, small ball. Just get it going. If you have to bunt your way on or get on base somehow, get it going. And get that run. You need it. You never know.
Small ball will still win you games. As much as people don't believe that philosophy, small ball will win you games.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, when I was a kid growing up, Jose Reyes, with the Mets, he led off the game with a single, stole second, stole third, and came home on an RBI ground out. 1-0 right there. That's national baseball.
Yeah.
You don't see that anymore in baseball. It's like, we got to hit the 3-run home run, and we got to be on SportsCenter because I want to see StarCast, with the 500-foot shot I hit it up in the upper deck in Tiger Stadium or something. Like, who cares? Just hit the ball.
No, yeah. But I tell you what, that's one of the things I've been really trying to learn about is how do we put the ball in play more? And I have an idea, so hopefully we can apply it during the season. But when you're talking about just hitters getting the lead off, still in second, still in third, remember that reminds me of my childhood team, the St. Louis Cardinals. Tommy Herr hit 300, 3 home runs and 100 RBI, right, as a second baseman.
Yeah, had Vince Foreman leading off. He hit single, went to double. We got stole second, stole third, came around on the Tommy Herr's single or something like that. Because I'm a Met fan, I remember the old rivalry, with the Cardinals and Mets used to go at it, and then that was a rivalry back in the late '80s. It was like they didn't like each other one bit.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I did find that clip, from Yankee Stadium. Let me pull this up for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I love finding things for people because it's like they're like, oh my God, where did you find that from?
I only had 78 Bs. I could probably tell you play by play.
Right, let's bring here's Wilbur Bush doing his own play by play here on Sports Talk with Chris Heidel. Here we go.
Chris
All right, here it is. All right, we'll pull this down.
Tony Fernandez. Yeah,
it's a base hit down the third base line.
Dennis Stewart.
Look at the speed you got. You're like chucking, man. You got into second base with the stand-up double, but my God, you're like, if you see the highlight of this, they showed the replay. You just got out of the batter's box real quick. Watch, and it's a nice pitch right down the pipe.
Yeah, I can't remember the count. I don't know if it was I went 0-2 and then got back in at 2-2 and got a pitch
Look
to
at that! Look
hit.
at the speed! Look at that speed! You're like, I'm going. I'm going to get a double out of this one. Were you thinking triple if the guy messed up a little bit?
Well, if he had bobbled, if Shannon had bobbled it, most definitely. But I was thinking, I'm gonna stick with this double because if I get thrown out at third leading off a game, I may never play again.
Joe Torre will yell at you, go like, "Really, son? What are you doing?"
Absolutely.
Hey, Chris, I'm about to age all of us. Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right, go ahead.
Kodak was on the wall in Yankee Stadium.
I know.
Nobody nowadays knows what Kodak is.
I do.
Kodak actually went away. Yeah.
And they had
Fleet was the sponsor on the backsplash.
And don't forget, behind home plate they had Fleet.
That's what I just said. Yep.
Bank, and it's like nobody knows a Fleet Bank is. I mean, I remember that growing up in New England. It's like it was.
Yeah. Jeez, Matt, you got any questions for Homer?
Yes, I do, Homer. So talk about what it was like playing as a Yankee.
Oh my gosh, it was as you can imagine now that the dust has settled, truly amazing, right? But at that time, honestly, Matt, it was exciting. We were winning, but man, my career with the Yankees was day by day. I didn't know if I was going to be there most days because we had so many really good players and so many veteran guys under contract, and I was a rookie. So at the time, it was extremely nerve-wracking. But right around September, maybe middle of September, Joe gave me his vote of confidence that I was going to be there. And so then I kind of could take a deep breath. I started to enjoy everything the team was accomplishing at that time. And for it to continue on into the postseason was, magical is the only way I can say. That season was just, it was definitely one for the ages.
That's cool.
So just a follow-up question. What is it like playing in the legendary Yankee Stadium?
Now that was definitely a high point. Now that they have the new stadium, and there's only so many of us can say we played in the old Yankee Stadium, right? And so
yes, definitely.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool in itself, right there. But the fans were on top of you. It's a little bit more intimate environment. I always say that, man, the fans in that stadium brought the best out of me. It's you learn immediately that if you play hard, be a good guy in the locker room, be good in the community, man, they're gonna love you. So that's all I tried to do. And you probably imagine, I think I only had like 70 ABs over the whole season. So I really wasn't trying to do too much. I was just trying to play small ball, get on base, steal a bag, get to second base some kind of way, because man, we had some professional hitters that could drive you in at any given time in 98. I think we had the most home runs on that team was, 24, 27, something like that. But we had several guys with 85 and 100 and 110 RBI. So that was definitely a lot of hitting with guys in scoring position.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. I mean, back in that time, New York Yankees were a dynasty and everything, winning World Series and yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you were definitely with a phenomenal manager, with players, and you yourself went ahead and contributed. And those fans, just real quick, talk about the fans, because I know the fans. Boy, if you're hitting good, they're on your side. But if you're not, watch out.
Derek Jeter said it best. They boo you because they want to cheer, right? So
that's true.
Yeah, when you really think about it, it's like, hey, man. And by the way, there has been a standard set in New York, and sometimes when teams go into funk, I think they do need to hear a little pushback, and that will make them work a little harder. I've always said this, and I think most owners should do this, is Mr. Steinbrenner's presence in the locker room after some games. I mean, it made guys button up, right? So, you wasn't going to come there and it wasn't going to be Club Med or it wasn't your sandbox to just have a good time. You were there to win. And I'm gonna say this one piece because when I get to talking Yankees and winning and Yankee tradition, a friend of mine said this, and when I thought about it, it was so true. He was saying, Homer, you played for an organization at a time when winning is all they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. He said, you can go to the bathroom attendant and ask the bathroom attendant, hey, what do you do for the Yankees? And he would say, I help them win championships. Like everybody from the lowest person down to the very top person, all the Yankees were built to do is win. And so that's pretty special. And I thought that was powerful if you can create that kind of clubhouse atmosphere and that attitude around the whole organization.
Yeah, I agree. And when I was a kid growing up in New York watching the other team, the Mets, I think it seemed like the Mets were always trying to be like the Yankees. And, there's only one organization, and that's the Yankees. You can't just be yourself. Just be yourself. That's all you have to be.
Chris, there's still a chance for you to fill out the conversion form.
Yeah.
You've done your penance, okay? You've done your penance as a STEM fan. And all you have to do is follow the Tampa Bay Rays for one more season, and then you can convert to Yankeeism.
Hey, everybody from New York goes down to Tampa anyway. That's why they get better crowds, for Rays games. Everybody comes down to New York. It's like what, $59 on JetBlue. Just go down to Tampa. Yeah. Well, Homer, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We're at the top of the hour, but thanks so much. And your first game is going to be April 28th against Charleston, so that's going to be a very interesting day for you.
It really is. And hey, thanks for having me. It's an exciting opportunity for me. I'm looking forward to it. And the Yankees having ownership does not hurt at all. I promise you.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll catch up with you before spring training starts.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Homer.
All right.
Thanks, Homer.
All right.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, Matt.
All right. That's Homer Bush, former Yankee, Blue Jay, Marlin. Hey, I'm a New Yorker, so I understand about New York. Mets, Yanks. I totally understand about the rivalry.
You've done your penance, Chris. You can convert. You just got to wait one more season.
Yeah.
There's always room.
No,
Chris,
I bleed the orange and blue.
Chris, we got to convert you. I've been trying to convert you all this time to a New York Yankee. You got to convert one of these years.
I could go to a Yankee game when they take on the Orioles, and I just sit there and laugh at the Orioles.
True.
Don't tell that.
Why do you think I call it Bronx South?
I know. Don't tell that to my mother. My mom would be like, "What?" Yeah. So,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, what are you talking about? I'm sorry, Mom. Hey, I call them. You know what I call the Orioles? The Mets AAA affiliate. Because they bring everybody. All the Mets trash,
including the coach.
Even the coach too. Yeah, we get Showalter back. So
yes.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us tonight. We had a great time with everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I know everybody's on the hangover from the national title game. But. We'll bring it back. We'll bring some basketball in next week. I know George is heading out to Minnesota, so you have a safe.
Hey, George, you'd go ice fishing in Minnesota, George.
George goes ice fishing. Hey, you should bring a camera, dude.
Only thing I'm doing, I'm going from the airport to my hotel, hopefully to a basketball game, and then back and forth to the office. That is. I am getting out of there. I love snow. I don't like Minnesota snow.
George, I just got a quick question for you. Since we're both huge Yankee fans, who are your top 3 favorite Yankee players?
Oh boy.
And I know that's a tough one because you got a lot of legendary vintage Yankee players, plus some really phenomenal modern players as well.
I mean, it's got to be Jeter, right? I mean, everyone's going to say Jeter. Yankees too. Yankees too is in my email address. Okay, so, man, I love the Yankees pitching of the 80s. I mean, I love the Goose. I loved Guidry. And I got to say our late captain. I'd have to say our late captain. I could still remember where I was the day that he passed and telling a buddy of mine the news. But yeah, there's just too many. How about you?
I mean, there's too many as well, but I mean, definitely Derek Jeter. I mean, he is one of the greatest Yankee players ever in the history of the organization. I mean, Whitey Ford, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle. I mean, you name it. Like Ron Guidry. I mean, Don Manley, Donnie Baseball. Tino Martinez, Bernie Williams, Mariano Rivera. I mean, I can keep on naming them. So honestly, I just don't have 5, as you can tell. I probably named close to 10.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I actually met the Mick, Matt.
Oh, well, you met the Mick when?
It was.
Well, of course, when he was alive, but
yeah.
There was a bank in town that was opening, and they brought Mickey Mantle in, and he was doing autographs.
Oh wow!
Wow.
And one, I wish I knew what my father did with that Mickey Mantle autograph.
Oh, you had Mickey Mantle autograph?
And I actually I actually had a conversation with him.
Nice.
Oh man, you had a conversation with the Mick.
Yep.
Well,
wow.
I got to find my father. Tells me the story. I was little. This is 1981. Whatever. They're driving down. I told you guys this story probably numerous times. My dad's driving down from. I guess he's driving back on the Jersey Turnpike going to New York. Whatever he saw, an old beat up Buick says, "Goose is loose." On the license plate. So my dad goes,
"Goose gossage."
And my dad goes, "All right." So he drives up. He looks over, and this guy with the mustache, his classic mustache. And my dad goes, "You goose gossage?" And he goes, "Yeah, man. What's going on?" He goes, the story becomes like every year, like wine, it gets better. Because when I was a kid, my dad goes, "Yeah, we exchanged papers going down 95." I'm like, "How can you do that when it's 55 miles an hour? How do you do that?" So I want to ask my dad if he still has it, because I want to bring it on the show here to show you, because he wrote, "Yanks going to get them, boys." Off to Baltimore. Yeah. So
I remember Jim Abbott. He had that no hitter, and he didn't have a left hand, and it was. I mean, when he pitched, it was like, it was incredible. It was University of Michigan alum.
Right. And the only thing I liked about Yankee Stadium is some guy named Tom Seaver. I know he was pitching for the White Sox, getting his 300th win at Yankee Stadium, and they bring in Leslie Nielsen, who was his broadcaster for the New York Mets, doing the final inning on WPBX in New York. The final inning, and to me that's pretty cool. Tom Seaver, who was the franchise, coming to New York as a visitor, getting his 300th win as a White Sox in Yankee Stadium. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And what they did to Tom Seaver was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Chris, I gotta say, when we went to that Notre Dame Syracuse game, like years ago, and when we went into Yankee Stadium, that was priceless. I mean, I know it's the new Yankee Stadium, but still, I mean, you got to see that. What they say, that's a stadium that Jeter built and stuff and everything, and it's got all kinds of phenomenal images from Jeter to vintage stuff and to like Mariano Rivera. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. The footage that me and Chris got to see in there. It was just priceless. And being a massive Yankee fan,
I was there too.
Shake down the thunder, nice.
He was there, dude. It was funny. We were following George around. We didn't even know who he was.
So hold up, George. Were you a part of the media there as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Well then we definitely saw each other.
Yeah.
I was there. I was at Yankee Stadium for the Notre Dame home game.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh wow.
We were in the press box too, and I saw the little plaque they gave me for my name, and I put that on my Twitter page.
Nice. Yeah. So when I'm talking about this, you're like, Matt, I already know what you're talking about because I probably saw you as well.
Yes. Well, guys, we're gonna log off. We'll see you guys. George, have a safe trip to beautiful Minnesota. Hope you don't freeze to death. I know it's cold as crap up there.
I appreciate it.
You know, and Adam, we'll see you next week.
Safe travels.
Matt, we'll see you next week, folks. Thanks for joining us. We'll leave you with one of my special things. We do this in this music thing on this day in music history. Let me bring it up here real quick if I still have it. You remember that song "Convoy"?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was actually made top. It was number 2 in UK. And and the funny thing is, the fun fact is that wasn't his real name. His name was Bill Fries.
Wow.
Yeah. So here's a little clip from I found today of Convoy. We'll leave you with that. We'll see you all next Tuesday night. George, we'll see you on the 24th. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.